Welcome back to We're the Brits in America. Today, folks, for the first time in a long time, I have an Always an Expat conversation for you. This is when I invite a fellow expat on who I think has a relevant and interesting story to share. Not necessarily someone with cross-border technical expertise, but lots of expat life experiences of the sort that I'm sure you will recognise. My guest today is Keith Hunt. Keith is a fellow Brit, Scottish to be exact, and long-time Shell employee who has lived across the world with the last 10 years or so in the US. But what's unique about Keith is his recent and ongoing battles with cancer. Yes, that's plural. First pancreatic and now brain. But more specifically, his response to these challenges and his reflections as a result. Keith first came to my attention when I saw a post on LinkedIn where he was reflecting on a life of worry and stress about everything that we all worry and stress about, only to be blindsided by pancreatic cancer and the liberation it gave him on the other side. He exhorted readers to embrace their lives, to live their lives. And this resonated with me strongly. I am as guilty as the rest of us for worrying and stressing about everything and nothing. And one of my core messages to anyone who will listen is one life. We get one shot at this. This is not a dress rehearsal. Precious time is slipping away, and people need to stop taking their time and health for granted and to get on living deliberately and stop acting like they have all the time in the world, because we don't. And I think this message is even more important in America, where it's so easy to get sucked into the culture of work, work, work to buy more, more, more. Well, since then, not only has Keith had to face some more battles head on, but he's been reflecting on expat life. And I think he has some really, really critically important messages that deserve a wide audience. And so I asked him to come on our podcast and share his experiences, reflections, and insights. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Hi, Keith. Welcome to We're the Brits in America podcast.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to speak with you this morning.
I'm excited to get into this conversation. As you know, you and I have been messaging for a while. I think you've got a really, really important, valuable message to share. So thank you for coming on and being willing to share it with us. If I can start, can I ask you to tell us about your journey?
Sure. Where do you want me to start with the journey? Do you want me to start sort of graduation?
Let's go right back to the beginning.
Start from
No, tell us the origin story. Let's get the abridged version.
the abridged version. Okay, that's an intro. Let me see. So, Scottish, proud Scotsman, proud to be British as well. Grew up in Aberdeen and Troon in Scotland. Graduated with a degree in petroleum geology. When would that have been now? That would have been about 1989. Moved to Mexico for a couple of years. Worked out of there. Always wanted to get ahead in life, always thoroughly enjoyed the job that I was doing, but wanted to improve myself and do better. And I went back to university, did a master's in exploration geophysics at Imperial. That would have been in 1994. And then moved to Norwich, and I met my wife at the time. That would have been in 1995. I was working for a small company there offshore. And we were doing site investigations, geophysical surveys. Then I was lucky enough to be offered a job with Shell, and that was in 1998 down in London, in the exploration team as it was at that time. We lived in London for a while, then we moved up to Aberdeen, lived in Aberdeen for a further 10 years where we had our 3 children. And in 2008, we were offered a position with Shell over in the Middle East in Oman. And I worked in Oman for 6 years there in a geophysical acquisition team, working in the deserts and around Oman, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And then we had quite a few issues, I would say, with one of our children in particular around mental health. We realized that she was struggling as a youngster, around about the age 6. She started to exhibit signs of autism disorder, which continued to get worse, and we could not find any local support. We were trying to get support in Dubai, and we flew back to England to try and get help. But things were getting worse, and it was putting a lot of stress on the family. So we decided to move back to the UK. Now, that would have been 2014, and when I started to investigate specific healthcare services around autism disorders in the UK, I found it would be very difficult and expensive for us to get the support we required. And I knew in America we could get the help. So I spoke to Shell, fantastic company as always, and asked if I could come and work in America. And they said, absolutely. a position was made available for me in Houston in 2014. We moved here, and we got the fantastic support and help that we needed to get for my middle daughter. My other kids were also struggling around that time, and we got help and support for them. And we've lived here ever since. Life for us has been fantastic. Unfortunately, in 2022, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was reasonably far advanced at that time. I had a 5 centimeter adenocarcinoma in the tail end of my pancreas. We immediately went to MD Anderson in Houston, and I got fantastic support from the doctors and the support staff there. I had 6 months of FOLFIRINOX chemotherapy, which I understand is the toughest chemotherapy that you can get, which was really, really hard. And then after that, I had surgery in March 2023 to remove the tumor, which was a great success. There's been no reoccurrence of pancreatic cancer whatsoever. And then, so I was
That's quite remarkable,
say that
isn't
again.
it? That's quite remarkable. I mean, that's a really good outcome for where you were at with it, right? Like to have seemingly completely eradicated it. That's quite unusual.
Well, the likelihood of survival after 5 years within America is 13%. It's been static at 13% for a couple of years now, and globally, it's worse. In the UK, I understand it's about 8%, something like that. I've always been fit and healthy and taking care of myself, been careful what I eat, etc. And that had a lot to do with my survival and the fact that there was zero spread. There was nothing in the lymph nodes. They took 27 lymph nodes out and examined them, and there was zero spread. So I have been incredibly lucky, not only with MD Anderson and the doctors and the specialists there, but my wife and my family and my support network here who carried us and held us throughout that period. I was incredibly fortunate and very glad to have survived that, yeah.
How was it identified, Keith? Were you were you feeling something, or was it a routine test checkup?
Yeah, my dad unfortunately passed away from pancreatic cancer a few years back, and my brother was diagnosed with bowel cancer, and I had a bit of a pain, not much, but a bit of a pain in my side, and I called the doctor and said a bit of a pain, and the doctor said, I'm too busy to see just now, but go and get a scan and we'll have a look at it. I was thinking, well, by that time when the scan was due, the pain had actually disappeared. So I thought, I'm not going to go. But then I thought, well, my brother's just been diagnosed. I've got the opportunity of a scan. Let's go and do it. I had the scan. Within 2 hours, the phone went and it was the doctor. And I knew it wasn't good as soon as I saw his name. And he said, there's something on your pancreas. We have to do a biopsy. So, that was it. I knew then and there, because of my father's experience, that the news wasn't good. So within 5 days, I had a biopsy and a diagnosis of pancreatic distal adenocarcinoma, and we had to take action.
Wow. I wonder if you didn't have that history in the family, you might well have cancelled it.
Well, it was on my mind because the pain went away, and so I get pains and gripes now and again around the torso area, and I thought it's nothing, but really it was the fact that my brother had recently been diagnosed with bowel cancer. He's doing fine now, by the way, thankfully, that prompted me to get it. And it was right down to the wire, but 15 minutes before the scan, I was thinking, I'm not going to go. And then I thought, nope, I've got to go and get this done. Had I not got the scan done, the likelihood is I would not be sitting here today. So thank you, Derek Hunt, my big brother, for... I shouldn't say that for having cancer, but, it was him that prompted me to go ahead with the scan.
Okay, so you took on pancreatic cancer, and at this stage, you seem to be. Is it safe to say winning that battle? I know things can change, but right as we stand now,
I'm winning the battle, Richard. That's good. Now the doctors see the 2-year milestone as very important, and I've got the 2-year milestone in just over a month. So once I hit that, then my chances of survival go up significantly. So for 5-year survival, and there's been zero spread. My bloods are good. The scans are all great from the pancreatic side. So I am winning the battle of pancreatic cancer to the point that I do not even think about it anymore.
Okay, good. But I think, sorry, I interrupted you before. It sounds like you got something else to think about though
Yeah.
now.
Well, I don't really think about it either, to be honest. So let me see. Just after Thanksgiving, we were on vacation with good friends in the hill country in Texas here. We had a wonderful time with them, and driving back, I had a brain seizure. Never experienced anything like it before. It felt like I was hit over the forehead with a cricket bat, and then extreme nausea. I was driving at the time, and I went into some form of lucidity, I would describe it. I could not see the reality around me, and I was at the wheel of the car, and I had enough sense to slow down, and my wife was trying to contact me and couldn't get through, and she grabbed the wheel, pulled into the side of the road, and slammed the car into park, and we came to. She couldn't reach me, phoned an ambulance. They thought I was having a stroke, and then they thought it was something more serious than a stroke, so they sent me straight to hospital. And they found a mass in my head after they did a CT scan. I was there for 2 days, and then I had to go back to MD Anderson. They were fantastic. Tina, my wife, was on the phone to them throughout, and they were saying, "Just get him here. We need to get him back to MD Anderson." And they discovered a 2 centimeter tumor on the right hand side temporal lobe by the skull, which was cancer. Unfortunately, it's the G word, glioblastoma, which we don't say in the house. It's a malignant form of cancer, but I was very fortunate that through surgery on the 18th of December, they removed the whole thing. The surgeon, Dr. Weinberger, was very pleased with the results of the surgery. He got everything out, and I've now entered radiotherapy and chemotherapy. I'm a little more than a week in on that. But again, the doctors say I've got a very good chance of longevity, as I'm relatively young. I'm 56. I'm healthy. I'm fit. The tumor was very small. They caught it very early, and the seizure was caused by swelling around the tumor for whatever reason. I was very lucky and fortunate to have that episode. Otherwise, it would still be growing in my head, and we wouldn't have identified it. So, yeah. So second time around for me with terminal cancer, unless if it's left untreated. But unfortunately, I'm getting the best treatment in the world. And it's funny, Richard, the second time you're given a diagnosis of significant cancer, I kind of took it in my stride this time. I thought, well, I don't mean to sound trite, but I kind of thought, well, I've been down this road before and I've beaten it. I know my support network is here. I'm at the best hospital in the world. I've got the best care in the world. The doctors do a fantastic job. And I really don't think about it. I think about staying strong and healthy through my therapy. I think about taking it super easy just now. My company have been fantastic and said to me, just stay away until you're fit and healthy. So they're really in my corner here. And as my wife and my good friends and family are. So I honestly don't think about it. I think about relaxing, recuperating, and looking after myself for once. I spend my life looking after other people, but I'm looking after myself for once.
And the brain cancer has nothing to do. It's not linked in any way to the pancreatic.
That's correct. So it's the second primary cancer. My surgeon who did the pancreatic cancer removal came to see me after I woke up, and he wasn't laughing, but he just thought, he was saying, it's very, very unusual for somebody to get 2 significant cancers. He said, obviously there's something going on with your immune system, that your body is not identifying these very early stage cancers, which apparently we all have, but our immune system recognizes them and deals with them. But I have no genetic abnormalities, but my immune system is just not recognizing them, and so they're growing. So I said to him, well, look, hey, I'm an experiment. I'm a man of science. Do your best. Let's do this. Let's do whatever tests and trials we need to identify what's going on, and let's hit it head on.
That is a 1-2 punch, though, isn't it? Crikey.
I'm still standing, Richard. And it's kind of bizarre. I almost have an excitement in my heart about life and dealing with this. I think I get that from my father. My father was a very strong individual, and he had a tough life, but he never really showed any signs of weakness, and was always positive. And my mother also always showed She always looked for the best in people, no matter the situation. My mother always saw the best in people and was always very positive. And I have them to thank for my joy in life and my the way I see things. So I think honestly that helps me significantly. And also, my wife describes it almost as a spiritual journey that we've been undertaking. And we do a lot of meditation. We do a lot of exercise, we do a lot of walking. We are influenced by a lot of positive speakers and people who believe that you can heal a lot of ills with your mindset and your personal practices. And it's something that we've grown into. We never set it as a goal, but we've definitely grown into these sort of practices as life has evolved for us in an unexpected way.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it. Some people might roll their eyes and think, oh, it sounds a bit wishy-washy, but it's not. You're absolutely not abandoning medicine and replacing it with meditation. No, it's augmenting. It's adding these things and then I think you see how that kind of thing permeates the rest of your life as well. It's almost a cliche for me to say, has it changed your perspective? Because how can it not? But how has this journey been for you from a mental kind of strength perspective, but also from how you think about life and living and both going forward and even when you reflect on your past, has it caused you to reevaluate in a way?
As I say, so it's a process, and your life's goals change as you grow and you mature and you start to tap into some wisdom that you have been lucky enough to learn along the way. As a youngster, I was really pretty hedonistic, as I think we all were, and lived a very selfish life filled with enjoyment and scraping by in education, to be brutally honest. And then that evolves into work ethics and setting goals around material things in life, and travel and family, and then when you start a family, you realize there's the weight of responsibility and accountability you have for these individuals, and so you grow and develop into looking after and doing your absolute utmost at all times for your children to ensure they have the best chance in life, and that never changes. And then you realize as you get older, your health develops in an unplanned way. None of this was expected. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, well, this is the day I'm going to be given a cancer diagnosis, So the spiritual journey that we grew into was not in any way set as a goal. I wouldn't classify myself as an atheist, but I believe more in the universe, and I know that sounds a bit wishy-washy in Mother Nature and things like that, rather than an overarching spirit that guides us, etc. But the way that it has changed me is when I was first diagnosed with cancer, with the pancreatic cancer, it hit me super hard, and I hit depression very hard. But I spoke to an individual who was a 12-year survivor, and it was magical to talk to him. And it gave me real hope and belief in the possibility that I might just make it. And from that moment on, I decided that I wanted to do as much as I could to help other people who were in a similar predicament. And I started to talk about my situation and how I feel and what I've come through. And I started to realize that people were saying to me, you're inspirational. What you're saying is where I want to be. I want to get there. And I was saying, well, you don't want to follow my path. But all I can say is think about your own situation and what worries you, what concerns you. Are they real concerns? Are you doing the best you can for your health? Are you keeping your mind at rest when you can? Is your work-life balance at an acceptable level? Are you seeing the doctor when you have any ailments? These are important things in life that you have to take care of, because if you don't, you're going to fall into a similar situation that I fell into. Now, what I find now in that gives me satisfaction and fulfillment is reaching out to people who are in a similar situation than as I, and their carers as well. And I talk to many, many people who have pancreatic cancers and other cancers and try to give them hope and a belief in themselves that they can potentially make this. If they lean into the doctors, if they look after their own heads, let the doctors look after their bodies, there's a chance that they could get through. So I talk to a lot of people. Unfortunately, some of these people don't make it, and some of them are really struggling. But I can offer them some advice to try and give them some peace. It's certainly not in a religious way, but more leaning into the friends and family, telling them how they feel, telling others their story, try and bring awareness to people out there who don't fully understand the struggles that people like I and my wife and my family go through, and just try and find some peace. So, and that gives me satisfaction and knowledge that I'm helping them in a way that this guy helped me when I was first diagnosed. So I find that I reach out to people. I'm meeting another lady next Monday whose husband is in a similar predicament as I was. So, so my life has changed in that respect, and I have a sense of kind of peace and fulfillment and contentment, which I've never had before, and a sense of home as well. We've lived in the US now for 12 years, and we've always seen this as a longer stopping point that will eventually come back to the UK, but it's a feeling of contentment and home that came over my wife and I when I was diagnosed with the brain cancer. I can't fully explain it, but we just saw the house very, very differently, and it turned into a home, and we see it through different eyes. We see our neighbours and friends here through different eyes, and we see our whole environment through different eyes as home now. So it's changed me significantly as a person. That's a hell of a long answer, Richard. I'm sorry that I take so long and waffle.
Well, no, this is perfect. And I want to come back to the home piece because I think that's so interlinked with being an expat in a way that expats will understand and a lot of people might not. But the Pete, you say it seems almost ironic that you go through something as major as what you've been through and you come out of it with a sense of peace. Outside a depressive period, because I imagine that wasn't particularly peaceful. But having gone through that process to come out and still be living in uncertainty, but to say you feel more at peace, that's quite a remarkable thing. And that's got to be, as someone I'm in the thick of it now with young kids, and I really, when you were talking about the responsibility and the pressures, I'm feeling that, and I'm not always feeling particularly at peace. And I work with people who are at different life stages, and I recognise we spend so much of our time worrying, stressing, not at peace. And I want to find that for me and help other people find it. But it's very interesting to hear that you had to go through something like that to find peace. And I wonder, is there a way for other people to learn from your experiences without having to necessarily go through something as traumatic as what you've been through?
That's a really good question, Richard. And I think I would tie that back to what you said at the introduction, in that we only get one life. And like everybody else, I wouldn't say struggled, but I've always fought for the best that I can do at work. And I've always put my hand up when promotions came along, or I felt there was an opening that came along that would suit me. And I've put my hand up and said, look, I'm here and I would like a chance at that and a shot at that. So I've always really pushed myself, and my wife Tina has always said, relax a little bit, you kind of let work bleed into your home life, and you need to take a step back. And I listen to her, and I do for a while, but then I always really kind of get back into work. And I have a very busy job. I'm in operations, and I've got a global role. We've got operations going on all over the world that I have to keep on top of. Now, more recently, we went through some changes within Shell, and I was very fortunate to get a promotion, and also I have a fantastic team of physicists that work for me, and I'm very safe in the knowledge that these highly capable, competent, intelligent individuals can do their jobs to a very successful degree. And it has made my life easier in that I can take a little bit of a step back and not be in such a sort of a controlling role, if you like, and just let them grow into their own skill sets. And that has freed up my time and freed up my sense of ownership to a certain extent, and allowing them the responsibility to do their own jobs, which has been fundamental to me in relaxing somewhat. Now, that has definitely helped in terms of my work and the time that I spend at work. But also, I'm at the age now at 56 where I feel that I have achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, both in work and in family as well. My kids have grown up. I have a 23, a 20, and a 17-year-old. My two oldest kids are at university in the UK and doing very well. My middle daughter, who was diagnosed with autism at an early age, through the help and support that we got in the US, she had to go to a school where she stayed away for a couple of years. And then she went to a fantastic school here in Houston also to get support. She's now living away from home in a situation that we never thought possible, but she has come on so well that she's independent and thriving at university. And my youngest, my son, who's 17, has been offered 3 university places in the UK of his choice. So that has helped it as well. And we had the most amazing time.
Keith, your middle daughter, who was diagnosed with autism, sufficient, serious enough that you moved to the US to get care for her. Is she now at college on her own in the UK?
It's incredible. Now, we went from a situation where I felt hopeless, Richard, and I can't explain how that feels when my wife and I were convinced that Florence would probably be incarcerated for her life because she could not function even within the confines of a family environment. And we decided to come to America to get help and support rather than the UK. We got the help and support, and through her own recognition of self and the care and attention of others, she is able to identify how she fits in. She's able to read people, facial expressions, intent. She still doesn't get humor a lot of the time, which we have a lot of fun with at home. And she's now living by herself. And it's the most amazing, wonderful thing. And it fills me with absolute pride to see, because she also has a mass of friends that really look to her, and she's almost like the glue that holds the friendship circle together. She's achieved this through her own hard work and realization of self. It's incredible to see. So she's doing extremely well. So, yeah.
Is it fair to say you're only in the US because of Florence and to get the help which is amazing? You know, the fact that just the way our life for expats, where we end up and the reasons we end up, it's fascinating. So you're only in the US because of the care you were looking for Florence, and also you said before, if you hadn't been in the US and received the treatment you had, you don't think you'd be here.
That's correct, and you know, Florence talks a little. She doesn't share a lot of emotion, but she talks a little at times about the guilt that she feels and the impact that she had on the family. You know, it was highly destructive at times, and we managed to pull through. But I explained to her this Christmas that we came to the US for help for her, but, you know, you can talk about fate and stuff like that, but there is perhaps a bigger reason in that I am here today because we came to the US. We have a very close friend who's a doctor in the UK, and she said to me, if we had stayed in the UK, I probably would not have survived because of how pancreatic cancer is treated in terms of early diagnosis in the UK. It would probably not have been identified and been identified at a very late stage, probably too late for my survival. So, yeah, and I've explained that to Florence, that there is a bigger reason why we came here, not just because of her, but because of me as well. So, and she understands that.
It's such a cliche to say everything happens for a reason, and I don't believe it does. It's just but a lot of the time, it does feel like it does happen for a reason. I used to say when I was far too young to be thinking about things properly. I used to say, look, if it's not, I used to say things will be okay in the end, and if things aren't okay, it's not the end yet. And I realized I used to say that as a teenager, and I recognize now that's kind of you're basically saying things happen for a reason, and you don't know. I'm much better at saying these things than actually living them day to day. I'm very guilty of getting stressed and
Richard,
stressed out and
would
worked
you
up.
go so far as to say that was fate? In
Which part?
that things are kind of like, as you move forward in life, there perhaps is not so much a plan, but that things happen for a reason.
I truly don't know because, like you, I believe more in the universe than a creator directing it
Yeah.
all.
So
But it does feel
can I
like
show you
that
something
sometimes.
quickly? So
Please.
I talk about fate, right? And I don't truly believe in fate, but my kids are Florence, Anna, my wife's Tina, and my youngest is Ethan. And so I got. Can you see this?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fate.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Florence,
Florence,
Anna, Tina,
Anna,
and
Tina.
Ethan. So it kind of ties in nicely to fate. I don't believe in fate, but it kind of ties in nicely.
It
That
does. It does.
fate's out
Yeah.
there, right?
Uh, you talk about not surviving the UK. You just because obviously, if anyone's listening to this from the UK or outside the US healthcare system gets a load of stick. Some of it deserved, but I don't think people see the other side of it, which is sometimes the level of care you can receive here is outstanding. And you mentioned at the very beginning, your doctor said, "I can't see you right now, but go and get a scan," and you went and got a scan. That's one of the things that happens here. You need a scan. You get a scan pretty damn quickly. I remember having to have an MRI in the UK, and it took
Yeah,
forever, and the hoops you had to jump through, and it was a disaster. And it's things like that that's just one tiny little part of the jigsaw, but it's an important part of the jigsaw. And having had some skirmishes with the healthcare system myself in the UK and the US. Well, if you've got coverage in the US, I'd rather get hurt or have to seek care here.
absolutely, Richard. I'm in touch with a chap just now called Lee Rollinson. Sorry, Lee Rollinson. He popped up on LinkedIn an article that appeared in the UK press. Lee had pains in January 2024, and he went to the hospital. He went to the doctor's ER, and I think he probably was given paracetamol and told to go away. He was back at hospital and eventually turned up at ER for the third time in October 2024. So we're talking 9-10 months after the initial symptoms, and they diagnosed him with terminal pancreatic cancer. Now, that hit me to my very core, and I reached out to Lee, and I talked with Lee on a weekly basis, and I'm devastated for him because had he lived in the US, the chances are that he would have a full life, at least a longer life than what he's been given. And I was just so hurt to read his story. Now, so my wife and I'm always an artist. She decided to paint some pictures and sell them and provide the money to Pancreatic Cancer UK, which we're doing really to honor Lee. And I want to get to the point where I've got a call with Pancreatic Cancer UK and NHS England as well to see how we can potentially tie up some of the really good aspects of the US health system in terms of early diagnosis and blood tests and scans to prevent the atrocities that happen on a daily basis to people like Lee Rollinson. So, I'm trying to help out in that way as well to see if there's anything we can do that we can adopt more of the US model for the people who pay for the NHS system, which is not servicing them properly when they need early detection for things like pancreatic cancer, which I understand is the third highest cancer for fatality just now globally, and it's growing as well. The amount of pancreatic cancer diagnosis is increasing every day.
I listened to a phenomenal podcast recently. Peter Attia, he's got a podcast called Drive, and he had an ex-colleague of his from McKinsey or somewhere who was specializes in US healthcare consulting. This podcast, it was like 2.5 hours. I think it's one of three, and it was basically just explaining US healthcare, because I've been here 10 years now. It's still largely a mystery to me, and it was so eye-opening. It was so interesting. And it talks about the amount of how much the US spends on healthcare compared to the rest of the world, socialized medicine versus what the US is, and large aspects of the US healthcare system are socialized. Insurance is socialized. But one of the overriding points was the US system is different. It's not necessarily better or worse. It depends what you prioritize. And Americans prioritize choice and accessibility. And they're willing to pay for it, both individually and as a society. And Europe and the rest of us, with our socialized medicine, which I fundamentally believe in as well, we're valuing a different thing, which is free at the point of use. But what we give up is choice and accessibility. And sometimes, particularly accessibility, is what might be the determining factor in survival or not. And it really got me thinking about the US healthcare, and it made me realize, and it's such an American thing, isn't it, that yes, America wants, in all aspects, wants choice and accessibility, and that manifests itself in the healthcare system. And it's for the UK or elsewhere to adopt that is a fundamental switch. It's a fundamental switch.
That's a really good point, and I think the NHS is probably properly funded. It's just how it's administered, I think, is part of the issue. Now, private healthcare is available through companies like Bupa and Cigna, etc., in the UK, but I'm not sure how available it is to people in rural settings or outside, places like London or big cities or whatever, which limits your choice. But I think somebody has to have a cold eye look at the NHS in comparison to the very positive aspects of the US and parts of Canada as well. And I think the way that you describe it there, in terms of choice and availability and that fundamental switch, can only be a good thing. And maybe we have to pay a little bit more for it in the UK, but you can't put a price on life. People like Lee Rawlinson wasn't given that choice. I'm sure if he had the option to pay a bit more, he would have taken that, right? As many of us would. So yeah, I think a long cold eye look at it is definitely required. We know that things change through time, things evolve, they adapt to the environment, and that's how businesses work. My company does this every 4 years. We adapt to the changing landscape. When was the last time the NHS changed and evolved? COVID should have been a wake-up call, but I don't think it really was. When I see the waiting lists and I see the fact that doctors have just been issued in the UK with guidance on how to treat patients in corridors, for fuck's sake. I mean, what kind of land are we living in at the end of the day, right? The NHS, I firmly believe, has to adapt to the changing environment that it finds itself in. Otherwise, we're not going to increase things like the statistics on pancreatic survivability after 5 years.
I feel that what I'm about to say might rub some people up the wrong way, but this is my experience, and I can only speak from my experience. Forget the level of care for a second. The way I was treated, the way I was made to feel going into care or hospital in the UK versus the US was radically different. It's like the difference in a greeting you get when you go to a restaurant, UK versus US. In the UK, frankly, I was made to feel like an inconvenience, like a bother. Whereas in the US, the service, the way I was made to feel, I had the same thing happen. I ruptured Achilles in the UK, ruptured Achilles in the US, and the level of care and the service and the way I was made to feel could not have been more different. So, Yeah, just there's a lot of the rest of the world likes to slam on the US healthcare system, and I get it. Medical debt is a real thing. We're getting letters from Aetna daily because my son had a procedure last year, and I've got my own things going on. But we're talking about your health here, and it makes a difference.
Absolutely. Now, again, my brother was treated very successfully for bowel cancer very quickly. My mother died of Alzheimer's. My dad died of pancreatic cancer. They were looked after very well, and I had zero complaints whatsoever. So there's probably pockets of excellence throughout the UK. But,
Sure.
when you look at the overall statistics, that doesn't highlight the pockets, right? And yeah, I completely agree with you that the US is phenomenal in terms of its care of the individual, and they see individuals, they don't necessarily see the statistics. And, a lot of people say, well, you have to pay for it in the UK, in the US. But the point is, we live in a capitalist society, right? You work hard, then you earn the right to have that privilege. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that at the end of the day. I work my socks off. The amount of tax that I've paid to the UK and the US is frightening, right? And that tax goes to pay for the benefit of everybody else within these countries. So the point is that if you work hard and you've got a good work ethic, then yeah, you can have that privilege. There's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you coming to the US if you want to do that. There's nothing stopping you from working hard and paying for private healthcare in the UK also. So, it's not a privilege for the rich. It's a privilege for everybody living in a capitalist society that wants to do well.
So, you mentioned before this experience has also changed your perception of home, which is really interesting because for expats, this concept of home is such a nebulous concept. You're never quite sure. Even when you're sure, you're never quite sure. Where do you belong? And then when you go back, quote unquote, home, after you've been away for a long time, you realise, oh, you know what? I don't quite belong here now either. And it's a liberating, unmooring, exciting, sometimes lonely, all the above. And that's neither good nor bad. But it's very interesting to me that you said this experience basically crystallized home is where we are right now. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. I can almost put my finger on the point where both my wife and I said this is home. And when I was diagnosed with the brain cancer, we called both our kids in the UK who were at college, and they said, no, we want to come home now. They had flights booked for them just before Christmas, and they said, we want to come home now. So we flew them both back immediately. And, we had a lot of fun and chats and everything. And then we were sitting outside at night time on Christmas Eve in the back garden, and we had the fire pit on and we were having a drink and things. And one of the kids said, let's go round and tell each other what we love about each other and what we're grateful for each other. And
one of your kids said
say again?
This? One of
my kids said it. Yeah, it's a very American thing.
You've done something right.
It's very it's like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a wonderful celebration that Americans have, and it's all about family and love and gratefulness and things like that. So one of the kids said, "Let's do it." It's Christmas Eve, and we've got a tradition in the family that we buy all the kids pajamas. So we bought them all these pink pajamas. So the three of them were sitting there in their pink pajamas, and my eldest boyfriend was sitting there in his pink pajamas as well. And it was quite a funny scene. But she said, yeah, let's go around. And, it was we'd never had a bonding moment like it before. We're a very tight-knit, strong family. We absolutely adore each other. But it bonded us, and it secured that family feeling for us in our home that we went around.
It's amazing, isn't it, that when you find your place, how meaningful that is, wherever it is, how meaningful that really is. Are your kids? Do you think they're obviously all studying? Or two of them out of the three, and it sounds like the third will go and study in the UK soon. Do you think they'll come back to the US? Is this home for them as well?
Although it feels like home, my eldest one wants to stay and work in the UK. She's made that pretty clear. Florence, the middle one, has said that she wants to come back to the US and live somewhere on the East Coast, anywhere from New York to Houston. She hasn't put her finger on it yet. And then Ethan, my son, will probably stay in the UK, but it's early days for him. He's still only 17. His goal is to study in the UK, and he's into ecology and zoology, and that's what he wants to do. So it's early days, but as it looks just now, probably the middle one, Florence, will come back here.
But is this solidified for you now? And are you so? I'm projecting a little bit here, but I imagine prior to this, you had maybe conversations about will we go back to the UK? Will we do this? Will we do that? And have those now abated? And it's just like no, this is where we're at. This is home. We're here for the foreseeable.
Yeah, definitely, and we're lucky enough to have an apartment in the UK that we visit there frequently, and we kind of bought it as a retirement apartment for my wife and I. Now, we love it. It's in Bury St Edmunds, and we go back there regularly. And we always hummed and hawed about what do we do? Do we go back to the UK for good and then keep an apartment here in the US? We always hummed and hawed about that. But since Christmas time, we haven't had those conversations. It's just like, no, this is home. And, we see ourselves retiring here and living here. And it's a very sort of definitive, good feeling to feel that way.
Yeah, I can well imagine, because I wrestle a lot with dreaming, fantasizing, thinking about other lives, and just having that kind of certainty and that feeling of belonging. I can imagine is a relief. How long have you been married?
We've been together for 29 years, and we've been married for 24 years.
Wow, because it sounds like you have a really fantastic relationship with Tina, and the older I get, and because I've got a wonderful relationship with my wife, the more just the more I cherish that, and the more I realise just how critically important that is to everything. Everything in my life is made better by my relationship with my wife, and it sounds like you have a wonderful, wonderful relationship as well.
It's so true, and it's a thing I cherish most in life is my relationship with Tina. We are absolutely best friends, soulmates, however you want to describe it. I fell in love with her instantly as soon as I saw her. I was in a bar in Norwich, and she walked in, and my eyes just popped out, and I just knew. I actually asked her to marry me on the night that I met her. But then it took us 5 years to get married. We wanted to make sure that we were fully compatible, and we trusted and loved and respected, and we're fully compatible, which we were. It took us 5 years to get to that point, and we married, and we never looked back. I'm a very sad puppy, but I adore my wife, and you do too. It's good to you.
Yeah, it's the best thing. Keith, thank you so much for coming, sharing your story, sharing these messages. These are I hope not everyone has to go through 2 rounds fighting with cancer to have some of the realizations. I hope people can benefit from your experiences and your reflections. I know you've got your treatment coming up, and you've got a road ahead of you. So I wish you the absolute very best of luck, and I'm really grateful for you coming in and sharing your story with myself and everyone who listens. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. I hope that our conversation touches a few people and perhaps even changes their views about America and American healthcare in particular. America's a wonderful place. It's been the salvation for us, and my views have definitely changed on America from what they were prior to living here. And it's a wonderful land of opportunity if you're prepared to take a risk and get yourself over here. So thank you, Richard. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. It really is, by the way. It is a land of opportunity. Not perfect. Nowhere is perfect. Huge problems, yes. But my view has changed, good and bad. But it is whatever it is a land of opportunity.
Absolutely.
Keith, best of luck. And look, we're open invite. Come back on in the future. Update us. Tell us how you're winning. We want to hear an update on your next battle, and then you're going to win again, and you can come and tell us all about it.
Be delighted to do so, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. See you soon.
Bye-bye.